What is up, duelists? And it is finally time. We are in that season again to talk about all the balancing and game design things that are going on in the TCG right now, because we are expecting a Forbidden Limited list somewhat soon. I don't know if it's going to be this month or next month, but I took the time on my stream to talk to my chat about what I think should change on the next Forbidden Limited list update. So we're going to be discussing, the power level of certain decks in the format, the power level of non-engine in the current format. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the discussion. Hope you enjoy the video. Hope you enjoy the discussion, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Let's get started. Before we continue, a quick word from today's sponsor. Displates are premium metal posters that offer an alternative to paper or canvas ones. You can pick your favorite from over 200 licensed designs, 40,000 independent artists, or pick a completely custom one. Once you've chosen your favorites, they'll arrive in no time, safely packaged, and it's time to mount them on the wall. The mounting process is incredibly easy, and they have a magnet system where you just stick the magnet on the wall so you don't have to drill. Put the metal poster on there, which is perfect if you don't want to damage your walls because you're renting or for any other reason. And because they're magnetic, you can just switch them out at any point if you ever change your mind, you want to switch things up, or use a completely different one. Like I said earlier, they have a variety of different designs to choose from, or you can upload an image to create a custom display for yourself. I, for example, picked a couple ones from my favorite shows and movies like Lord of the Rings, One Piece, and Avatar. I also got this Donald Duck from my dad because he's a huge fan of that, so there's really something for everyone here. Now, if you want to try Displates out for yourself, there's a link in the description. You can use discount code Joshua to support the channel as well, and you'll get 22% discount on one Displate, 27 on 2, and 33 on 3, on all of them except for the limited editions. Use the QR code displayed on the screen right now, or like I said earlier, use the link in the description down below. A special thank you to Displate for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back into the action. It is that time again. I've postponed this a little bit just because I felt like talking about a ban list or a potential ban list in July or even June was a little bit too early, but we are at a point where the format is in a pretty established position for the TCG, and I wanted to talk about a potential ban list that will probably, if I had to guess, hit us at the end of August. And there are a couple of issues in the format right now, but overall I would say a lot of the archetypes that have been designed recently are actually fine. You're going to notice that for a lot of the talk today, I'm going to direct my attention, or what I want to happen, at some of the more generic things, endboard pieces and stuff like that, that I feel like are a bigger issue in the game right now than what individual decks are doing. But of course, we have a couple of outliers, better decks than others in the format, cool tune, branded, and so on and so forth. So I think it's an interesting discussion of what exactly they will change in this upcoming ban list. And I will say for this one, I am going to put a heavier emphasis on what I want to happen, because I personally feel like this one is very hard to predict. I think this could go a lot of different ways, and we'll talk about the different ways that there could be doing, but I think it's very, very hard to predict what exactly is going to happen. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what I think should happen from my perspective. This is going to be subjective. This is going to be biased towards what I think good Yu-Gi-Oh is and the issues I think the format has. So if you disagree, that's completely fine. You can leave comments down in the comment section on YouTube, but it is going to be more of a wish list this time around and less of a prediction, even though I do, and I will argue why I think the things that I'm asking for are somewhat realistic as well. I'm not trying to make it completely copium. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, but yes, let's get started. Like I said earlier, a lot of the things that I feel like are wrong with the current format are when decks are doing too much, especially in the sense that there's still a lot of bridging going on. There's a lot of generic endboard pieces going on that decks are doing that I feel like they shouldn't be able to, because that's not how the decks were intended, or it's a power level that the decks are not intended to have. Like, for example, when an Elf Node deck ends on something like Cypher Lord Omega, Crystal Wing, Dawn Dragster, and stuff like that, doesn't really have anything to do with the Elf Node deck itself, but rather the lack of any sort of locks on it. And I'll tell you why I think it's somewhat realistic that something like this could happen. And I'm not going to put all of these in the ban segment. Like, I'll tell you which ones I think are more realistic than others. But I think we are in a relatively similar spot than where we were 2 years ago with Snake Eyes, where Snake Eyes was, of course, a lore deck at the time. It was getting support. It was meant to get support later down the line as well. And it was really hard for Konami to hit Snake Eyes because they didn't want to hit the Snake Eyes cards themselves. I think right now we are in a similar spot with the Medius lore decks, with Archmage, with Doom Z, with Power Patron, with Elf Notes, all of which are decks that are doing too much when they go first. They all have too strong of a board when they go first. And don't worry, I'm not only going to do hits to the combo decks, we're also going to do hits to Branded and Cool Tune and stuff like that, because those decks deserve hits as well. But the combo decks are one of the more obnoxious thing to play against in the current format. And back in the day with Snake Eyes, what they did was they didn't hit any of the Snake Eye cards, but they hit the endboard pieces, the generic endboard pieces that the deck was summoning. And this is something that for the long-term health of the game is a phenomenal thing to do. It was very well received back then, and I really, really hope that they're going to do something similar right now. Back in 2024, it ended up hitting cards like Baron the Fleur, Appaloosa the Bow of the Goddess, and Borreload Savage Dragon. And then for some reason, in the last year or so, we've just stopped hitting generic endboard pieces to an extent. So what I would really like to see is taking away a generic endboard piece from a lot of these strategies. For synchro strategies, I think it's time to say goodbye to Cyframe Lord Omega. I think hand looping is very much not okay in general, but in particular with how the modern game is being played. The boards that people make are simply no longer breakable, especially if you have less cards in your hand. I think this is not really a hot take, so I'm not really going to go on about it for too long. This card is far too generic. It belongs to the Cyframe archetype, which is not really a playable deck to begin with, so it's not like you're taking much away from people in that regard. And it's just something that for years now, people have been summoning this card in different strategies. It was even, funnily enough, it was the backup plan for Snake Eye decks 2 years ago, right? Remember when they banned Baron and Savage, people started doing Omega plus Dispatter? Because with Dispatter, you can loop this thing twice, or you can loop it a second time, rather. This card should have been banned a long time ago, honestly, and right now it's the perfect opportunity to do it, because it's actually seeing very active meta play, and it's a way to make the Elf Node board less obnoxious and less like powerful and problematic to deal with. Next up for Elf Node is Crystal Wing. This would be wishful thinking. I'm going to leave this card in untouched, because I think with the Speedroid Legendary Modern deck coming out, they probably won't do it. So I'm not trying to be unreasonable here. I'm not trying to, you know, create expectations of something that's probably never, or not never, but not right now. I don't think they're going to hit the Crystal Wing at the moment. And I think if at the very least they take away the Omega, I'll take it for now. Okay, some people are saying they didn't put the Crystal Wing into the modern decks. Maybe. Look, I think it's copium. I think it's copium. I think the reason why the Crystal Wing isn't in the modern decks is because it was reprinted somewhat recently. I don't remember what set it was, maybe Battles of Legends or something, but I remember there was like a rare Crystal Wing in some side set, so I think it just has a relatively recent reprint. Phantom Revenge, yeah, it was something like that. So it does have a reprint already, and maybe that's why they decided not to reprint it. I personally think if we get the Omega, I'll be happy with it, because that's one of the most outrageous things that Elf Node is doing, especially with the amount of like good board breakers that we have coming up, right? I feel like leaving a hand loop, a generic level 8 synchro hand loop in the game when you're trying to bring the game into a direction of more board breakers is completely weird and doesn't make any sense. So this card should finally go now. And the other thing I really, really want is Varudras, the whatever it's called, the Bringer of End Times or something. I just cannot stand generic, completely Omni Negates in the extra deck. I think this card is just Baron, but for XYZs instead of Synchros. And I think this card makes it so much more annoying to play against every sort of Power Patron deck at the moment. In just every time a deck has level 10s, let it be Yubel in 2024 or 2025. Or whether it's the Power Patron decks now, Doom Z. I just cannot stand going up against Varudras anymore. I'm even at a point where I would rather play against Mercurium, the Living Quicksilver. Like, for the love of God, please get rid of generic Omni Negates, especially the ones that are so generic that any deck with the right level can make them. I just don't want to deal with this stuff anymore. I really don't want to do that. But my trains, dude, trains, if your deck needs Varudras to be viable, then you don't deserve it in the first place. And also trains has been turned into combo slop FTK piles. I'm sorry to inform you that something like that should not be backed up with an FTK. Like, I didn't include anything regarding the FTKs on this ban list, but I feel like that should probably be on here. I don't even know what the most effective thing would be, but like Gustav Max to 1 or something like that would probably be reasonable, yeah. I think they have to do something about the amount of FTKs that people are doing. This is another thing about the direction of like, if they want us to play more board breakers, there cannot be like 5 different decks in the game that freaking make Gustav Max FTKs happen. That just can't be a thing. I thought long and hard about how to deal with the whole Azamina, Dark Magician of Destruction, Dia Bellstar package, and I do feel like I do reach the conclusion that I think something should be done about this. I think it's kind of obnoxious. I think the card, I will say, the card that is at fault, in my opinion, is the Dark Magician of Destruction. I think Dark Magician of Destruction is a card that should not have been printed in this form. I think this is the card that they should ban. My issue with this, and I mean, I did say earlier it's going to be more of a wish list, but I don't want to wish for something that I genuinely just think has a 0% chance of happening. And I don't think that this is happening. I think it should happen. If I'm thinking about this in any sort of even just slightly realistic fashion, there is going to be a Dark Magician set of overframe, like, what's it called? Overframe Grandmaster rares and stuff like that. I don't think they will do this at this point in time. I think it's not a they will never do it, because they've shown in the past that they are willing to touch cards that are very close to like the Dark Magician archetype. Remember, Red Eyes Dark Dragoon was banned for a while. I don't know why they brought it back, but it was banned for a decent while. And so those cards, they're not immune to the ban list. But I think they won't do it at the same time as a Grandmaster Rare Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl comes out. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if the same logic applies to Magician Souls, but I feel like it kind of does. But I think, personally, if I got to snap ban one of these cards, I would ban Dark Magician of Destruction immediately. If not, I would do Magician Souls. But since they are probably not able to do this at the moment, because they have just Dark Magician support on the horizon, I would take the Sylvia. And I think this is a little harsh to the Azamina players, because I actually, even though Ilya Sylvia is an Omni-Negate and I don't like the card, I think it is one of the quote-unquote fairer Omnis in the game, because like the Dia Bellstar engine usually is a decent-sized investment. You have to like discard cards, you have to resolve deception, and so on and so forth. Like, you do invest a decent amount to get this. It tributes itself, so if you negate a hand trap with it, at least it's gone for good. If you negate with it when your opponent plays into it, it's also gone. Your opponent doesn't have to deal with it. But if we are at a point where we're not expecting Dark Magician of Destruction and Magician Souls to go, I think Ilya Sylvia has to go. And these cards obviously belong together, because the power of a Dia Bellstar is amplified a lot if you not only get to do Ilya Sylvia with it, but you also get to do Dark Magician of Destruction for free. So if we're not hitting Dark Magician of Destruction, I think we have to hit the Dia Bellstar package somewhere where it hurts. And I think the main reason for people to play the Dia Bellstar package is Ilya Sylvia. That is the thing. And with my theme of I want to get rid of generic endboard pieces, I want to make endboard weakers, I think Ilya Sylvia is the only thing that they can do if they don't want to hit these cards directly. And so that's why I'm advocating for it. What is the chance of all three getting limited? Funnily enough, probably not 0, but that would obviously be horrible. And then 2 other cards that I at least wanted to mention here, just because I'm a little bit concerned about the direction of design that is happening right now. They are making a significant amount of generic endboard pieces again, and especially combo enablers in the Charmer Quartet in Bloom and Xena the Deceiving Doll Maidens. Both of these cards obviously are not going to go onto the ban list right now because they've just been printed. And I think they are different in a way from other cards that I've just shown or talked about, because both of these are not the endboard piece themselves, right? I agree with you guys. I think both of them should not have been made. And there would be other ways to deal with this. Like you guys are saying something like Protect Code, Talker, or Firewall. I just think it's a little bit weird to ban Protect Code Talker, because that card, yeah, and it's funny because I'm defending a Cybers card right now, but I don't feel like that card is that crazy. I wouldn't be mad if they banned it. Just, I'll say that. I wouldn't be mad if they did that. The bigger issue I have with both of these cards right now is what people are doing with it. And that brings us into another segment, which is one of the bigger issues of the TCG right now, is there's still a decent amount of floodgates that I want to talk about and that want to be dealt with. So I'm never going to stop talking about floodgates when we have ban list discussions. I will simply never stop. but I will reduce it because you all know at this point that I want all the floodgates to be banned, but I will reduce it to these are actually the ones that are actively being played this format. They have real reasons to ban these cards because they are actively impacting the current gameplay because they're very commonly being played. And the cards that I'm looking at for this is Archlord Christia and Spellcancellor are the two more common ones that are being summoned with cards like the Charmer Quartet in Bloom or also Fallen and the Virtuous. I have gone over deck lists from the European Championship and the NAWCQ, and these cards were present in top cuts for these tournaments. I think Spellcancellor wasn't quite in the top 8, but there's a lot of decks in the format that are summoning Spellcancellor. There was branded decks that were tutoring out Christia. Of course, branded decks are also tutoring out cards like Diabels, but I think just in general, these two are by far the most generic ones because they're good against basically every single deck because every deck special summons, every deck wants spell cards. So these two are particularly obnoxious if they're being tutored out. And there were a bunch of decks that were trying to do that via Zena as well because you can just send these cards. This happened to me at Euros as well. I played against a deck that had branded cards in it. So it went Zena, send Christia, revive it with Fallen and the Virtuous. This is something that shouldn't be happening in modern Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. We've been over this. We've talked about all this. So please at least get rid of the ones that people are actively playing. Same thing goes for Anti-Spell Fragrance. This is a card that people are tutoring at the moment with Pharaonic Advent, which is a card that you can find with Magician Souls as well. So that's another problem. Magician Souls being able to bridge into everything that's a spellcaster is kind of crazy. But Anti-Spell Fragrance absolutely has overstayed its welcome. And then the next most common thing in side decks right now is actually Mistaken Arrest. This card is extremely popular in every deck that doesn't search much itself to just side an auto win button for everything that searches going first. And it's just basically, this is your somewhat semi-generic dimensional barrier replacement. Not every single deck can play it, but most decks can, and most decks will consider it if they have the option. A lot of branded decks are using it in particular. It's become a very, very popular side deck card. I mean, I've mentioned this card on previous discussions already. Please, for the love of God, get rid of these cards. And then here is 3 that I absolutely would like to see banned: Baguska, Dimensional Fissure, and Different Dimension Ground. However, like I said earlier, it's a wish list. We already have 7 bans. I think we are getting into a realm where I don't think they would ever ban this many cards, because it would make them look kind of bad, because it's like, oh, well, I mean, we kind of like, why is this game needing so many balance updates? I think these 3 in the current format, if you compare their usage rates to what these cards are being played at, I'll take it if they do some of these. I'll take it. Like, these 3 are not popular enough for me to be like, I want all of them to be. I mean, I want all of them to be banned, but realistically, I think these 4 would be a nice start already. Okay. Let's talk about some individual decks. Let's talk about Cool Tune first. Cool Tune is by far the most successful deck at the moment in the TCG. It is the most successful deck at the NAWCQ. It was the most successful deck at the EUWCQ. 7 people in top 8 had Cool Tune in NA, and it also won the European Championship and had the most top 8 spots. They absolutely have to do something about Cool Tune, and they have to do something relatively big. In my opinion, there are 2 things they could do. I think both of them are valid, and I'll tell you which one I would prefer. But the 2 things that they can do is, on the one hand, they can kind of do what the OCG has done. They can like limit Rotary, semi-limit Cool Tune Synchro, or like limit both, or like limit one and semi-limit the other. I think that would be fine. In my opinion, and this is once again a little bit of copium, I would do this. I would do this. I would ban Zaylin, and I think this deck falls apart pretty hard if they don't have access to Zaylin. I think the deck has way less negation going on if you hit Zaylin. And Zaylin, in my opinion, is also something that would be a ban that would be very appreciated for a long time to come. I thought you loved Zaylin. Look, I don't love Zaylin. I just think he's more interesting than other Omni negates, but at the end of the day, it is just another way to negate your opponent's cards. It is just another way to negate your opponent's cards, so I don't love Zaylin. He's more interesting than Baron, yes. He's more interesting than Baron, but he's not, like, great. You know, he's fine. It's way more acceptable if Zaylin's in the game. I still think it would be cooler if it wasn't. You know what I mean? Now, this I think is copium. I'm telling you right now, I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think this is going to happen. I think they are way more likely to do something like this. In which case, I would like to see Cool Tune Synchro be limited. Honestly, even if they ban Zalen, maybe still hit a couple of the Cool Tune cards a little bit, like semi both of them or something. I think semi-limiting Rotary is not even that necessary. I think limiting Cool Tune Synchro is quite the good hit. What about Q? The weird thing with Q or anything, Q, Rico, and Mix are just consistency hits. You guys know I'm not a fan of consistency hits because I just think you should hit the ceiling of a deck rather than its consistency. I don't think it's a matter of, well, sometimes they get to do it and sometimes they don't. And because Q is so searchable and recyclable, it's not really something like they can just replace it with other consistency pieces, or they can just play a less consistent deck. And as long as they can get to the Q, it doesn't make a difference. And Cool Tune Synchro is different. Cool Tune Synchro is different because Cool Tune Synchro is actually one of the few resources that this deck cannot recycle. You cannot recycle Cool Tune Synchro in Cool Tune, and it's a starter extender, but it's also your end board piece, right? You want to set this to have it on your opponent's turn to interrupt them. And if Cool Tune Synchro is limited, you can only get one, and that's the only one you have. And so I think this is a very, very strong hit. If they limit Cool Tune Synchro, that might already be enough for Cool Tune. Unironically, it might be enough. As I know people hate Cool Tune, but I think you guys might underestimate how much limiting Cool Tune Synchro hits that deck. Like, that's the main way they interact with the opponent. Like, they are forced to main deck cards like Cool Tune Playlist at that point, which is not something they want to main deck, trust me. Honestly, Zalen ban is kind of a wishful thinking kind of hit, but Cool Tune Synchro limit, I think, is somewhat realistic. And I would like to actually see it. I would like to see that because I think that makes Cool Tune so much weaker and actually manageable. The thing is, people are so worried about Cool Tune when Tune is just around the corner and Tune is just power crept Cool Tune. So honestly, the unfortunate news is that how they hit Cool Tune barely matters because people just play Tune anyways in 2 months or 3 months, whatever it is. So yeah, do with that information whatever you want, but yeah. Branded is a very, very interesting one, and it's a very interesting one for me in particular because I like Branded, but I also recognize that it deserves some hits. So I've been thinking to myself, what can you do about Branded without killing it? My personal goal is that they don't kill Branded. I don't think this is a deck that deserves to die. I quite enjoy Branded being in the format. Like, not only from the perspective of playing it myself, but also playing against it. I think it's a very, very healthy deck to have. I think it's very strong. I think it deserves a hit, but I don't think it deserves to die. And I think people are suggesting stuff like ban Albion. I think that kills it. I think this kills Branded in the way that it currently exists. If you ban Albion, people might still play Branded, but the deck has to do some very toxic stuff to even win anymore. Like, if they ban Albion, but they don't ban, like, Christia, then people are going to do Grand Guignol Send Christia and revive it in order to even be able to win, because the deck just doesn't do enough without Albion. I think this is what should happen to Albion. I think limiting Albion is a good idea, because Albion is played at least 2 copies, or usually exactly 2 copies, by every single Branded deck for very good reason. I think this card is a very, very smart limit, because it's not just a raw consistency hit, it actually hits the longevity of the deck. I think this matters a lot. If you send one to the graveyard on the first turn, you can't summon the other one on the opponent's turn, and so on and so forth. You have to worry about recycling it before you can use it again. This is not the only hit that I will be suggesting, but it is, I think, a very, very smart hit to Albion, or to Branded, to hit Albion the Branded Dragon to 1. And then a lot of people are suggesting a limit to Branded and High Spirits, which I am not sure how I feel about it, because on the one hand, this is a consistency card. On the other hand, this is the best consistency card in the deck. It's the best consistency card in the deck, so I would be okay with limiting it. You can still access it. You have to go through the motions of, like, Albion searching it or something like that. But personally, I'm not convinced that this is a good hit. I personally think this card is fine, has a reasonable cost attached. You have to draw it with another monster that you're willing to discard and stuff. I think this card is fine. I think limiting Fallen of the White Dragon is reasonable. I think this card is very, very strong. Has been popping up in a lot of other decks as well, which I don't really have an issue with it personally, that other decks can play Fallen of the White Dragon to, like, make a level 8 synchro and search Fallen into Virtues. I think that's okay. but I think limiting this card is reasonable for Branded. Not because, of course, it's a small consistency hit because they get to play one less copy of it. But in my experience playing Branded, it actually does come up that you want the second one. Like, I think this does hit your longevity rather than your short term, because a lot of the times this is also the one that you want to banish right now for Albion. Like, if you summon Albion, what you will do is you will usually banish this Albaz to fuse with it because you want to keep the OG around. If the one of is banished, you have to jump through some hoops to get it back. You know, you often search another one for follow-up with like your Titanic Lad. So I think having one only is actually an interesting hit to Branded as well. And this is kind of like the theme that I'm going for with these Branded hits, is I don't want to kill it, but I want it to play more, like I want it to be worse. I don't want it to be less consistent. I want it to be worse, but I don't want it to be dead. And I think limiting Albion and limiting Fallen of White Dragon, I think is good. And leaving Branded Fusion untouched, of course, because this card is not even relevant for Branded. This does not mean unlimited. This just means no changes to it. I think Branded Fusion at 1 is just fine. Fallen into Virtuous is an interesting topic because a lot of people think that Fallen into Virtuous deserves to be hit because it's being played by so many decks. And the other side of the argument is basically Fallen into Virtuous is a very fair Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's just a pop with some follow-up. Like, who really cares if this card is popular? It's healthy for the game anyways. And this is kind of the side of the argument where I stand on. I think there is a relatively elegant solution to this problem where we can kind of meet in the middle. Personally, I like the card at 3. I do like the card at 3. I could live with this. I could live with this because semi-limiting Fallen into Virtuous alongside one Albion still makes it so you can play this card in every deck that wants to play it. Like, you still can. There's just 2 copies instead of 3, which on a non-engine card that isn't integral to your strategy, I think is fine. You can live with that. I think if you limit it, I'm not a fan of limiting it because then only Branded gets to play it, because if you can't search a second copy, then the card is worthless in everything that isn't Branded. So I think a semi-limit on this card is fair. Actually, I think a semi-limit on this card hits Branded the hardest out of all the decks. It's weird because if you limit this card, it hits everything else but Branded. If you semi-limit the card, it hits Branded more than other decks, because Branded is the deck that wants to use this card on the first turn a lot of the time. If you use it on your first turn in Branded now, especially with Albion being limited, you lose a lot of long-term. Like, Branded is the deck that grinds through 3 copies of this card the most. I think a semi-limit on this card is actually reasonable. And this is just to kind of like meet in the middle. I think this is a fair balance between leaving the card completely untouched and actually limiting it, or even worse. Like, I think this card does not deserve to be higher on the ban list than Semi. Semi is something that I could get behind, personally. Sky Striker. I'll say something that is probably a hot take for half of the community, but if you have issues with Sky Striker, that's a skill issue. That deck is fine. That deck is completely fair. That deck should exist in the way that it is. And if you are constantly losing to Sky Striker and complaining about Engage, I think you need to get better at the game. So that's that. That's all I have for Sky Striker. There's no way they should hit Sky Striker. There's actually no way. They're genuinely, it's even crazy to think about. Mitsurugi. I personally am of the opinion that Mitsurugi doesn't need to be hit. This also applies to Sky Striker. Both Sky Striker and Mitsu, I think, in their current form, are very healthy for the game to be viable, because it means that people can just pick up the legendary modern decks for them, and that's that. You're being biased? Yeah, it's my list. It's what I think is good for the game. What do you mean by... I always read this as if it's something that proves anything. Like, oh, Josh, typical biased Josh take. Like, yes, this is my opinion. Of course I'm... Like, what do you mean? I think that Sky Striker is a fair deck. I also think Pure Mitsu is a fair deck. So yes, you're watching a video with my opinion in it. So why are you surprised to find my opinion in it? What do you mean? Anyways, I think if I had to do anything about Mitsu, I would leave prayers alone, because it's been proven by other formats that limiting prayers kills Mitsu. It's basically nowhere to be found in the formats that have limited it. So I don't want them to do that. I think banning the trap is something they should have done a long time ago. I would love to see, if there's any Mitsu hit, I would love to see that. But right now, it might not even be warranted anymore. This was something I would have loved to see like 6 months ago. Actually, the more I think about it, I did still play against a lot of Mitsu at Nationals and Euros. Like, there still is a lot of Mitsu, especially a lot of Mitsu combo variations. You might be able to defend the trap in like a pure Mitsurugi deck. I've played against multiple Azamina, Mitsurugi, Chaos Ritual piles where they would end on so like Ilya Sylvia plus Great Purification plus the other board plus whatever. I don't know. Just for a good measure, you know what? Let's just get rid of this card. Okay, Terminus Spell. As much as I hate the Elf Note, Medius, Our Patron, Slop combo piles, I will apply my own logic here. Under the assumption that they would ban cards like Omega, Varudras, and so on and so forth, I'm okay with the consistency card being untouched. But this is only under the condition that they actually get rid of Omega, Varudras, and maybe some of the FTK stuff that they can do. Then I'm willing to leave the Terminus cards and everything completely alone, is my take on this. I think the engine itself is not the problem. The problem is what it ends on. So yeah. The Amorphages, I'm gonna be honest with you, I just forgot the Amorphages when I made this list this morning. I thought I included everything in terms of floodgates, but guess I was wrong. There's always a floodgate lurking around the corner. I forgot the Amorphages. Yes, they should probably hit the Amorphages. Yeah, that'd be nice. What if they don't hit Omega? Well, then the Elf Note decks are going to be miserable to play against. Whether this card is at 2 or at 1 or even banned, it wouldn't really matter that much. Like if this card stays and this card stays, then I don't even care where this card is because my opponent's going to open a starter anyways. Like if they don't open this one, they're going to open Lucina or Medius or whatever else. That's what I mean. Consistency hits. Doesn't matter. The end board is what matters. They need to hit the end board. It's important. Very important. And now we have my favorite topic that I have the most hope and also the most fear for, which is non-engine. And this is something that you will know if you've watched any of my streams or videos in recent weeks or months. I think non-engine is Yu-Gi-Oh's biggest problem at the moment. I think the fact that non-engine is getting incredibly stale and incredibly powerful and like especially hard to beat for the player going second is one of the biggest problems that modern Yu-Gi-Oh has. A lot of these cards that you see right here, I honestly wish didn't even exist. I'm not going to ask for all of them to be banned because I know that that's not happening and I know that's unreasonable. I really, really hope that we can get some of these hits, especially the ones that the OCG already has. The OCG at the moment, even though I like to make fun of it, they're kind of non-engine mogging us right now. Like their non-engine is actually healthier than ours. Like they got 2 Ash, 2 Impulse, 1 Droll, no Called by the Grave. I think in terms of non-engine, except for the fact that they have Maxi, their format is actually a lot better. And I think we're going to see this at the World Championship where both of the ban lists are combined. I think I'm really looking forward to the gameplay at the World Championship, especially at the highest level. Like the fact that a lot of the endboard pieces are banned in the TCG and a lot of the non-engine is banned in the OCG or limited more in the OCG, I think is going to make for a very, very cool viewing experience at the World Championship. And so I want the same. This is what the OCG has right now. This is what the OCG has right now. So all I'm doing is I am asking for the same thing. And I don't do this very often with the OCG, but this is the one thing that they have that I want as well. Please, all of these cards, Called by, Droll, Ash, and Impulse, all of these cards are better when the player going first has them. No exceptions. Sometimes they help the player going second, like Droll, Ash, and Impulse in particular. Sometimes they help you going second, but most of the time when the player going first has them, they're even better. So I would like to get rid of these. I think this makes sense, especially in combination with hitting some of the endboard pieces, hitting some of the floodgates. Because what does hitting endboard pieces and floodgates do? It makes going first weaker. So that eliminates some of the need for always drolling your opponent or always ashing your opponent or always impulsing your opponent when you're going second. So I would love to see some hits on these cards. It doesn't have to be specific way. I mean, the more I get, the happier I am, essentially. Like, if they end up banning Droll, I'd be happy. And then Shifter goes without saying. That card should have been banned before it was printed, so I'll include it here. And Super Poly is a card that I don't personally have a massive issue with, but I think it also kind of falls into this category of cards that are completely acceptable going second, but very, very strong going first as well. And I think that is just a concept of a card that is aging relatively poorly. Like, I think it's just, we need to be more aggressive about non-engine that is just almost better going first than going second, or just straight up better going first than going second. Super Poly is one of the less outrageous examples of this, but I also think it's kind of like interesting how Super Poly specifically buffs specific decks more than others. This is, for example, you could consider this a branded hit or a hit to the invoked deck as well, where it's just significantly better in those decks. So maybe I could see a semi-limit on Super Poly being okay. And as you can see, I actually don't think that engines in Yu-Gi-Oh right now are much of a problem. And that includes even the engines that I dislike, like Elf Notes or something like that, or Doom Z or some, like the Medius lore. You guys know I'm not a fan of the Medius lore. They don't even need to hit any of the Medius lore cards. This is not why I don't like those cards. I don't like these decks because of what they end on. I think the biggest issue with modern Yu-Gi-Oh right now is generic endboard pieces, generic floodgates, and generic non-engine. The cards that basically every single deck has access to. There are just way too many ways to abuse them at the moment. Every Synchro deck abuses Omega, Crystal Wing, Dawn Dragster. Every XYZ deck finds a way to make frickin' Varudras. Every deck where you can make Dark Magician of Destruction or anything, you can just bridge into Ilya Sylvia. Everything can make Xena to send Christia, Spell Canceller, Pharaonic Advent to tutor out Anti-Spell Fragrance. Like, that's the problem, I think, at the moment. And so very, very little hits to actual archetypes here, you know? Like, of course, I mean, Azamina catches a stray. I'm aware it's not ideal, but Azamina catches a little bit of a stray here. The Mitsurugi trap, honestly, they probably just leave it. I don't really care that much about it, but I would do it, but they don't have to. Yeah, most important to me, number one, please, generic non-engine that's better going first than going second. Troll, Ash, Called By are the main three for me. Number two, generic endboard pieces, Omega, Varudras, Ilya, Sylvia, in that order of importance. And then Floodgates, Christia, Spell Canceller, Amorphages, whatever, you'll find some. And only then, in the order of priorities, only then is when I start thinking about, like, okay, how do we hit branded? How do we hit cool tune? How do we hit whatever? That's how far down I think the archetypes are in the things that is wrong with modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, a lot of the times what you play doesn't even matter. If your opponent goes first, makes a branded board and has Troll in hand, or if your opponent goes first, makes a cool tune board and has Ash Imperm Veiler in hand, or if your opponent goes first and plays Elf Notes and Ash is your Charmy, or whatever. Like, it's always the non-engine that gives you like the final blow. And this is the thing, even the Elf Note board, if they banned Omega, the Elf Note board probably becomes breakable if it doesn't have crazy non-engine behind it. But the thing is, like, even if you don't have an issue with the individual card, maybe you're a defender of Droll or a defender of Ash, the problem is that every deck plays like 18 of those, or like even more in the case of Cool Tune. So on average, after they make a board, they will have 2 or 3 of them in hand. And that's when every deck becomes unbeatable. That's when it doesn't matter if you're playing against mid-range or combo or whatever you want to call it. Because if they draw 2 to 3 of these cards on average and they're all good going first, then you have a problem. A massive problem when you're going second. And I think that's the best thing they can do to make going second more reasonable in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think these changes, the reason why I want them so badly is because the archetypes, we've talked about this in the past, the archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh! They come and go, right? Like, you will only be playing against Cool Tune for so long. You will only be playing against Branded for so long. Well, maybe Branded is a bad example because that's been around forever. But the thing that stays is the generic cards. The thing that's been here for 10 years is Ash Blossom. The thing that's been here for even longer than that is Super Poly. The thing that's been here for 15 years at this point is Troll and Lockbird, right? Like, these cards, they can make new archetypes, but the play patterns that these cards provide will stay. And so they need to hit these cards, otherwise the game is not going to change. It's only going to be the images on your engine is going to change, and then you're still going to win your games with Troll and Lockbird 5 years from now. Especially as decks are becoming better, you know, like, it's just, we need to update the non-engine, basically, is what I'm trying to say. We need to update the non-engine. So yeah, that is my take on the current format. Of course, there's a lot of banned cards, and this is why I said earlier, I think this is more of a wish list than an actual prediction, because there's no way they're banning 11 cards in one ban list. I don't think so, at least. But I wish they did. I really wish they did. Maybe hit Vision? I thought about including Vision, but I don't think it's necessary. I mean, they could semi-limit it, and I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't be mad about it. I would understand it. It's fair. Like, having an issue with Vision right now feels like having an issue with Allure of Darkness in Malice format. I think Vision is not a problem. Drones ban? I advocated for a Hornet Drones ban during Yummy format when Camellia came out. It would have been a very, very nice way to stop people from bridging into Yummy, but right now no one is doing it. So I don't see a pressing like reason to do it right now. But yeah. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate you for watching. Give me some feedback in the comments down below, and then I guess we'll see, hopefully at the end of the month, if this is actually happening.